guys, it's Jem here and welcome to the Colour Cave where we like to play with art stuff. Today I'm going to attempt to do something with my watercolours. I have a beautiful set of watercolours that were gifted to me, and for those of you who are regulars on the channel you will know that one of my favourite phrases is "I am not a painter." Well, today we're going to try and rectify that. I'm not winging it. In a recent haul video, I did a kind of vlog style haul video which I'll link in the card and down in the description if you want to watch. I picked up a magazine that had some watercolour tips and techniques for beginners. So my plan is to do this over 2 videos. Today's video I am going to try some of the techniques and see if I can maybe get a grasp of the basic concepts of watercolour, and in the next video I'm going to try and bring some of those techniques together and actually paint something that looks remotely recognisable. So if you're intrigued to find out how much on arse I'm going to make of this, which let's face it there is a high probability of, or you want to follow along, then feel free to come and watch this video with me, and I'm just going to gather everything together that I need and we can get going. So here I have my magazine that has all the different steps that we're going to do, and it's split into a couple of bits and bobs over 4 pages. The other items that I have to hand is my beautiful set of Kuretake watercolours. I've also got 2 pots of water, and one will be for cleaning my brush and one will be for adding water to my paint. I have a plethora of paintbrushes. I'm not even going to bother showing you them, there's a squigillions of them. I've got a couple of mixing palettes as well, and the other thing that I've got is some kitchen towel, and I have a pipette, and this again is for dripping water in. The other thing that's really handy to have is one of these disposable syringes. You get them for kids medicine or animal medicine. They do just the same job, so it doesn't matter if you can find one of those if you're wanting to try this. I have taken an A3 sheet of watercolour paper and I've just split it into 4 sections, one for each of the tips and techniques that are in the magazine. And so I'm going to try and centre this as best I can. So the first one is mixing watercolours, and it doesn't mean mixing 2 colours together, it means actually mixing one shade with water to get the colour that you desire. The first thing that I need to do is I need to soften up the paint in my palette, because you can't just stick a wet brush straight into these, you've got to add a little drop of water. In the magazine she's used a nice sort of orangey red colour, which I think I'm going to do the same, so I'm just going to pop a couple of drops of water on there. Okay, so you can tell that the paint is quite dry, because when you go to run your brush through it, it kind of drags, so you know that is quite dry paint. That's actually more orange than red, but I'm not going to split hairs at this juncture. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put the first layer down, and this is more or less neat paint. So you can see that is like super thick, super vibrant. And these paints are really vibrant, which I think is really nice. I really like that about them. Because that was neat paint, look at the colour of my water. It looks like a sort of dodgy cocktail already. But that just goes to show you how much pigment was on that one application. Right, so now what we want to do is, it says to lift some of the neat colour into a different area of the palette, and then add a tiny bit of water. I have literally put 1 drop in there, and then I'm going to mix that up. And then we're going to do the same thing. Oh, that's really watery. I wasn't expecting it to be that watery. Let's add another drop of water. I think maybe because I didn't dry my brush off. If I dried my brush off before I did that, it might have been less watery. Yeah, so that's, look at the difference in that already. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try step 2 again. I think this is too watery because I didn't dry my brush off. So what I'm going to do is I'm lifting this neat paint again, and I'm going to squish it into this side. And then I'm going to put 1 drop in like this. I'm going to wash and dry my brush off before I stick it in there again. Okay, there's not much of a difference. It's a little bit darker than that one maybe, but okay, that was worth a try. But anyway, you can see just by, I mean, that is literally 1 droplet of water at a time. The different types and opacities that you get just from one colour. So that's quite a variation there in itself, and that's good to know. So again, if you're working, it might be an idea to have quite a lot of these so that you can dilute and maybe work from the strongest shade down to the palest, and then you can use the same wells. I don't know, but that would seem to be logical to me. Tints, they're calling them tints. Okay, so I have managed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tints from one colour. The next part talks about, I've got water all over this, there's dog hair and everything on this already, we've not done anything. Oh man, this is why I keep saying, like, I know you guys like laugh at me, but I am not a painter. Seriously, I am not a painter. I am a liability for stuff like this. So the next thing they talk about is drying your brush on kitchen paper. Now this is using a fan brush, and despite having about a gajillion paintbrushes, a fan brush is something that I don't actually have. However, I do have lots of these little Faber-Castell brushes that you get with their gelatos, and they are slightly angled, but I can splay them out and they'll give a slightly sort of better fan effect, and if I destroy them it doesn't matter because I've got about a bajillion of them. The next colour that she has used, now that the person that has done this tutorial, his name is Terry, and I don't know if it's a man or a woman. The next thing that they do is talk about painting grasses, so we're going to get a nice green colour, and I think I'm going to go just for this straight colour, number 53. Oh, this is so much fun already. I've made such a mess. And squish it down in there, and that is, again, I can feel the brush, and you can actually see the brush strokes dragging. If I tilt that slightly like that, when I do this, you can actually see it dragging across the pan, so you know that that paint is as concentrated as you can get it. Okay, clean the brush, a drop or two to that. Ooh. What they're saying is that you've got your paint on your brush and you want to try and make a sort of textured effect with what you've got, and when you do this you're not getting what you want, and 9 times out of 10 it's because there is too much water on your brush. So what they're suggesting is if you dampen it off on a paper towel and then try and do what you need to do, you will get more of a texture. Now this, I'm going to show you in the actual magazine, because I don't have a fan brush, but they're trying to create grass strokes. So you can see here with the wet brush that it's just put a blob of colour down, whereas after you've dried your brush on a bit of kitchen towel you get these streaks, which is this sort of textured grass effect. So you can see there, that's kind of what I went for there. I say it's very difficult without a fan brush, but what's happening is because the paint's dry, you can see that the bristles are starting to split a little bit, so that's a good sign in terms of getting that textured grassy look. One of the other tips that's at the bottom of this page is saying about trying out what you have mixed in your palette on a scrap piece of paper or on a corner of your painting before you actually put it in your picture. That to me is common sense, but it's worth mentioning. I suppose you could use cheap paper to do that, but personally I would have a sheet of watercolour paper. I know it's expensive, but it'll give you a better idea of what it's actually going to go down like on your painting. The next part is on to washes, and the first thing we're going to do is apply a flat wash. Now this is the thing I'm kind of scared about, but we shall see how we go. Now it does say to prop up your canvas, and all I have done here is mixed some really bright blue paint. A flat wash is all the one colour. What we want to do is take a large detail brush. This is one of these, this is a number 8, and I don't know whether this should be damp before we start. I'm going to dampen it slightly, and it's saying to pick up the colour. We want to go in strokes, and each one down underneath the other. Now we're supposed to pick up this bead of colour, this supposed bead of colour, and as you can see mine's not very flat at all. Maybe I don't have enough water, but yeah, this is all, the colour's all supposed to sink down to the next, you know, to the bottom of where the pigment is, and then you're supposed to just carry it on basically, and mine's not doing that at all. So you can actually see the lines in mine. Oh no, I've just made it worse. Oh, it's starting to dry, oh no. Right, so that is what not to do. I'm gonna try again. I'm gonna make it slightly wetter this time. See, this is starting to run down. It's not running down enough. Maybe if it was tipped up more, it might. Okay, can you see this line that's starting to form here? So I'm supposed to grab that and keep going. Now I have left that a little bit too late, but if I start going now, you can see it's starting to make its way down to the bottom. Oh, that's better. It's not perfect. It's still pretty streaky, but you can see towards the bottom here I'm starting to make a bit of a better job at it. I definitely need to practice that. The next one is a graded wash. A graded wash starts with a strong colour at the top and it fades to a paler tint further down. I've dampened my brush slightly this time, but it's not wet. And what we are supposed to do is we are supposed to cut the palette, paint in horizontal strokes, and the bead should form. This bead, I don't know where I'm going wrong. I don't see any bead. I don't know whether it's because my paint's too thick. But anyway, we're supposed to add a drop of water. See, it's kind of starting to bead now. Yeah, and then we're supposed to keep adding water. So I'm going to add more in there. See, this is really watery now. And it is running down. You can see there's a bead forming there. So that's always something. Oh. I think maybe my initial mix just is too dry. I don't know, because I seem to be getting on a lot better now, and I am getting that the colour is sitting towards the edge, this bottom edge. It is running down the way, so maybe it's just too thick. Okay, I would say I've done a substantially better job with that than I have with some of the other ones. My gradient's not particularly good. Oh dear, I don't think doing that's going to help, is it? That's still wet, so maybe. Okay, that's better. It doesn't look anything like the one in the magazine, which I'm going to show you just for comparison. Yeah, I've done a reasonable job though. I'm quite happy with that. At the bottom of the wash, pick up the bead. So this bit that's forming here, I am supposed to wash my brush, dry it off, and then lift it with my brush to sort of suck it up and take it away. Okay. That was a success. Oh my goodness. The next one is a variegated wash, which is where you mix colours. Oh dear. So we want quite watery paint for this, I think, so that we can get what we want. We do this and we have to make sure that there's an even bead at the bottom. So I would say that's pretty good. And then we are supposed to clean the brush, which is what I'm doing. Give it a clean. Pick up the second colour and merge into the bead. Okay. The second colour merges into the first as you continue to paint horizontal strokes down the paper. Really? Wash the brush again and then pick up blah blah. Ah, okay. So this is just pure colour now. I'm liking the fact that it does actually do what it's supposed to do. Yeah, okay. Yep, do you know what? I'll take that as well. That's pretty good for a first attempt. Wow, there's a lot of cleaning in between. I think I would have a better setup for it because I'm kind of all over the place. Like, basically I've got the pad in the middle here and everything else is in a sort of semicircle, but I'd need to figure out a better setup because I'm jumping from the left hand side to the right hand side. Oh. Anyway, there is my, oh, I've put a splotch on it. Oh no, that was because I was gesticulating. Oh dear. And once again, I'm going to show you the really pretty one in the magazine because it's way better than mine. but that is how we do that. So that is good to know, that if you work on a slant, you're going to get on better. And I have to say that if you look at this, just even the strokes on the paper are a lot smoother than these ones have been over here. So I am learning something. I'm improving already. For the next technique, we are working wet into wet. So the first thing that we want to do to slow down the drying time is to make sure our paper is slightly damp. So I'm just using a big wide brush that I had kicking about, just to make this, and I mean, I'm not going to absolutely soak it, I'm just going to make it a bit damp, and it's just to give us time to work with it. Again, being completely inexperienced, it's important that we have that time. Now the first thing we're going to do is clean my brush. I've got to keep cleaning brushes. There's a lot of this in watercolour. I'm learning this very quickly. The first thing I am going to do is put down a really watery coat of this pale blue that I've mixed up, which was the blue I had before, literally with just a bit of white added to it. So I'm going to squish this down on the paper, and I don't need to be careful with this. Yay! I should be doing a wash here, but... So while that is still wet, the idea is that we pick up the second colour and dab it on top of the first, and it should, in theory, sort of spread into the other one. Oh yeah, look at that. That's quite nice. And you could probably mess about with that and, you know, get it to do something a bit more exciting, but the fact is that it will. I'm adding just a little bit more water around the edges to see what's going to happen. So as part of the wet into wet technique as well, there is a demonstration here about doing some rain clouds. Now I'm actually going to do it on the wet into dry side, because I'm going to use it once it's dry as well for the last part. I'll use a large brush to paint a thin wash of raw sienna. I need a yellow brown, and I have this colour here, which to me would indicate a yellow brown. I'm kind of running out of palette space already. Where's the brush? I'm so confused, I've got too many brushes already. Where's the little fabric? Yeah, okay, I want this one. Okay, so yeah, what I'm gonna do is, it needs to be quite diluted. A thin wash of raw sienna is what we're asking for. I want you to kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm kind of running out of space in this palette as well, but that's okay because I have loads of these, even though I'm not a painter. No, I do use them for inks and other things as well. So my brush is wet, and I'm just gonna like scoop up some of this, and I'm gonna stick it in here. Oh, I need more. I thought I brought more kitchen towel through. Man, lots of kitchen towel, guys. Seriously, if you're gonna do this, you need lots of kitchen towel. Between cleaning brushes and wiping brushes and brushes. Now I bet you there's people out there, there'll be those of you out there watching this video that do watercolour, and you're going to be screaming at your screen right now like, what are you doing, Gem? I'm a novice, okay? Just bear with me. Right, let's move that out the way. We want a wash. I've got this little dinky one here. This is quite cute, this one. So let's clean the brush. What I'm going to do is I am going to stick a couple of drops of water in here, maybe 2, and I'm going to mix it in. Oh, that looks pretty already. It's quite runny as well, so I think that's a good consistency. I might just put another splodge in for good measure. There we go. Ooh, I'm excited already. So here I go. And that's quite runny, see the bead forming? So I'm just going to swish that right down there and swish that right down there. And I'm going to let it run. Come on, run to the bottom. It's running but very slowly. There we go. I also think as well that I might not have had enough paint actually loaded onto my brush. You know, maybe I'm being too stingy with the old paint. Oh, there we go, we're running now. This is really dark. I wasn't expecting it to be as dark as this. I was expecting it to be a lot more watery. That goes back to what I was saying about the tip about trying it on an area before you put it in your painting. Point in hand. And then I am supposed to take a sort of dark cloud colour, and then you're just supposed to like this is supposed to be doing what I was doing over here, and it's not really doing it the same. It's just kind of sitting. I think that this is dried too quickly. I maybe needed more water down on it before. before I did some more. Okay, let's try that again. I'm gonna like absolutely squish a gajillion tons of water on this because I don't think I had enough time there. I would say it might have almost been slightly dry by the time I got to it. Right, okay, so that is me. I have squished down. If I tilt that, you can see it's wet. And I am back here with my raw sienna type colour, which I have watered down so it's even paler. Aha! Okay, can you see how much this is running? So that's like practically nothing. Okay, awesome. That's what I'm talking about. This looks much more like well, it does in the picture, and I'm going to show you in a minute, but I want to get in and put the rest of this down while it's still wet enough. So I'm using this kind of, it's like a dark kind of like thundercloud colour, which is number 67, which is this one here. It just looks black on the camera, I know. Brush diagonal cloud shapes across the sky. I'm kind of scared. What constitutes a cloud shape? I thought the whole point of clouds were they just kind of do their own thing, don't they? Bring this down here. Okay. I'm a lot happier with how this is going. Yeah, that could be like a cloudy background for something, couldn't it? Yeah. I think you'll agree that they look slightly more like clouds this time, so I quite like that. I think it might be an idea to try and like find a balance. I think that this is too wet because it is bleeding quite far down, but I think that's just practice and experience that will help with that. As far as I'm concerned, they do look like clouds, which is pretty good. Alright, so this is dry now, and you can see that round the side here's not too great, but this is looking a bit more like a cloud the way it's supposed to. Anyway, so moving on to the next technique, which is the wet on dry technique. So we have a dry background that we've already painted, and we are going to use a wet brush. Now this is used for adding detail to your painting, so you would do this wet on wet maybe for backgrounds and things, and then after that you're going to use a wet brush to add in your detail. And I'm going to draw in what I hope will look like a tree trunk or something that resembles a tree trunk. And we're going to put a little branch up there, maybe up here. So you can see there that I'm able to paint straight on top of that, and it's not really affecting what's underneath, which is nice as well. Alright, now that we're dry again, we are going to look at the dry brush technique, which is going to allow us to create a little bit of texture, hopefully. So what we want to do is we're picking up our colour, and then we are trying to get the brush as dry as possible, as the technique might suggest. So all I have done is picked up some of this dark brown here, which again just looks black in the camera, but it's not, I promise. And I'm just wiping off the excess on a bit of kitchen paper so that the brush is dry, and then after that I'm just going to start dragging it across the, clearly not dry enough. You can see it's starting to make some textured marks now, and I'm just dragging it across the paper. And this is, it's a bit like the grass thing we talked about before. It's adding that texture and interest to whatever it is you're doing. There we go, that's starting to look a bit better. If I zoom in a little bit, you might be able to see a bit more. So you can see there that, and well, it looks as if you can mess about with it, but there you go, look. Get some texture into your tree trunks. And you have to admit that does look remarkably more like a tree trunk than it did 10 minutes ago. Oh, I've made a bit of a mess there. So that gives us something to do texture with as well, which is quite interesting. And I think I could probably have used a different brush for this, but these are just cheap brushes. But there you go, you can still achieve some texture with a cheap brush. Lastly, the thing we're going to do is called glazing, and it's kind of like doing a wash, but you do it when you're finished with your details in your painting. We have to mix the colour that we're going to wash over the top. Now in the demonstration, it's a gentleman, his name's Terry, it's a man. I found this out. This was the original painting and this is the finished painting. So he's put like a wash over the top of the painting once he's finished to add like a lighting effect. So bearing in mind that we've got this sort of bluey yellowy background, I'm going to use like a pink colour and see if I can do the same sort of thing. But the colour that I've got in mind is this kind of like light fuchsia, more pinky colour, number 34. So I was going to use that as a starting point, and it's amazing. Look at it in the palette, it looks like a really, really dark red, but you can see the minute I've put it in there, it doesn't look pink at all. It doesn't look red at all, it looks pink. I think one of the things I'm finding hardest about this so far is gauging how much water should be in your mixture in order to create the effect that you want. And as I said, I think that just comes with experience and practice and like knowing your watercolour paper, because I'm assuming that different types of watercolour paper will behave differently. I have got this overwhelming urge and I'm just going to do it. I'm going to take a neat colour. Make sure I've got a clean brush, and yeah, I'm going to take this and I'm just going to make me a tree. Yeah, this isn't in the frickin' tutorial. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. I figured I might as well make it look like a tree if we're going to do something with it. And all I'm doing is using this round brush, and again it is very, very dry, but that was the intention. And it's just so that we can, I'm going to actually have to add a tiny little bit of water so that I can pick the paint up. And I'm just wiping off the excess on my trusty kitchen towel. Oh, that's too wet. That's better, I suppose. I don't know what's squeaking. Can you hear the squeaking? I don't know what's squeaking. Pip's heard the squeaking. Oh, Pip, what's that? Right, you know you need to go down. Yeah, that's her, she's got paint on her chin. Learning from my mistakes and also heeding the advice that I have read out to you already. On this piece of paper, I am going to test out the different dilutions. See, now I'm talking dilutions, that's a very scientific thing. See, when we were doing these to begin with, if I just called them dilutions, I'd have been right at home. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, this is exactly that, yeah, okay. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for. That's maybe a little bit too vibrant still. So I'm going to add another drop of water. Just one drop at a time. You can always add more, you can't add less. It's like pencils. I'm always going on in pencil about using a really light pressure because you can keep going over. Same thing applies. Oh, there we go. I'm going to use this big wide brush again. I seem to be getting on quite well with this. So again, I'm just going to make sure it's absolutely clean. So again, as I did the last time, I'm just dipping it in clean water, and then I am going to squish a quick layer of that over the top. There you can see the water. Oh, that's far too much. And we're just going to use that over the top. There we go. It's the sky, the sun's starting to set or something like that. Okay, I've got a bit of colour run there. But it is reacting with the different colours in the background, and I don't think that's supposed to happen. Maybe I'm just being too heavy-handed with trying to use my wash technique again. There we go. Okay, so against the cadmium, the raw sienna colour, it's fading a bit better there. But there you go, that has given the desired effect. It's changed the background quite considerably actually, and even now as it's starting to dry, this top part looks better already. I was worried that that was going to become a real big muddy mess, but it's actually turned out okay. So there we go, that is a glaze. Woo! So there we have it, everyone. This is the start of learning to watercolour. We have learned about some mixing techniques with water, how to do some washes, some of them better than others, some texture techniques as well with a dry brush, as well as the wet on wet technique, how not to do a wet and dry technique. But we've also learned about glazing as well, and using that dry brush technique to actually do something. So it's been quite an entertaining escapade for me, and I hope you have enjoyed watching, and perhaps maybe you'll give it a go yourself, or I don't know, maybe you don't after seeing me and it's put you off for life. So yeah, you can see I've used quite a lot of stuff here. I've used quite a lot of brushes and kitchen towel. You need lots of kitchen towel. Okay guys, I've had great fun doing this, and I hope you will join me again for part 2, when I am actually going to try and paint something using some of these techniques. Thanks for sticking with me till the end, and we'll see you next time in the cave. Bye for now guys.